Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 2nd Union County Public Schools Board of Education meeting. We will begin tonight with an invocation from Chaplain Vic Weaver. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It's good to have you back. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let me just say how much I miss our ROTC students to be here with us for that. That brings us to the approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to add a last minute addition for discussion and possible action entitled 2020-21 calendar amendment / return to 5-day week for elementary students. If we could add that, I would think it would be best after Dr. McKibben, so we can get on his way down towards the end if we could.
Okay, I have that noted. Are there any other recommendations for the agenda? Okay, then I would like a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion to approve amended agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, we have the approval. We will now move to the nomination to fill the District 1 vacancy that has now been approved by the Democrat Party to fill this vacancy. And we will move to the swearing in of our new board member. Pastor John J. Kirkpatrick IV. If we have J.R. Rowell here with us, we will ask Mr. Kirkpatrick's family to please come and join us.
Yeah, that's good. Reverend Kirkpatrick, congratulations on your appointment to the Union County Board of Education. It looks like you got a lot of support already. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, so help you God? Do you further solemnly and sincerely swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God? Do you further swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of member of the Union County Board of Education according to the best of your skill and ability and according to the law, so help you God? Congratulations, sir. Step up here. Let me help you sign. I got 3 copies there. Just sign right there. I think if y'all want to take any pictures or anything like that, cheer, that cartwheel, whatever you want to do. Pray, that's right. Congratulations, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, hi. Oh, that's awesome.
So welcome. We look forward to getting to know you and serving with you. And I'm going to steal a line from Reverend Benson. Put your seatbelt on. But we are very happy to have you join us tonight. Okay, I am going to move now to the John H. Crowder Service Award presented by Board Member Kathy Heintel.
Good evening. The late John H. Crowder spent more than 30 years serving the children of Union County. As a living tribute to him and his legacy, the Union County Board of Education awards the John H. Crowder Service Award every month to an outstanding high school student who is making a difference in their school and community. Students who receive this award are not only academically successful, but also have established a history of community service. Due to social distancing guidelines, we are sharing these awards virtually. The winners will be recognized through a special online tribute that will be posted on the UCPS website and social media pages. Tonight, we award the John H. Crowder Service Award for March to a senior at the Central Academy of Technology and Arts, CATA, Medical Science Academy, who constantly and selflessly serves her peers and the youth around her. For the past 5 years, Kirsten Hicks has been serving as a small group leader for kindergarten and first grade students at Life Point Church. In this role, she sets up the rooms for the children to play in and then checks the children once they arrived. While their parents are in church, Kirsten supervises the children, plays with them, and helps new children feel welcome to the church. After church, Kirsten helps takes the kids to a multi-purpose room where Bible study takes place. During this time, she helps facilitate games and activities that helps the students learn the lessons from the study. She enjoys getting to know the children and helping them learn lessons that can help them throughout their life. Kirsten has maintained a 4.28 GPA and has been a member of Yearbook, Robotics Club, Beta Club, National Honor Society, Writing Club, and the Travel Club. She also serves as the captain of the varsity volleyball team and was also named the 2020 CATA Indoor Track Sprinter of the Year. In college, Kirsten plans to study biomedical engineering. Board members, please join me in congratulating Kirsten Hicks as the March 2021 recipient of the John H. Crowder Service Award.
And again, I miss having our students here in person to accept this huge honor. We will now move to public comments. 30 minutes has been allotted for public comments. Community members wishing to speak during public comments should state their name, address, phone number prior to making other comments. The board will not hear in open session complaints about the performance of school personnel, confidential personnel issues, or confidential student issues. Individuals may address the board for 3 minutes. Any person who is appointed representative for a group may address the board for 5 minutes. Should a community member wish to seek information or share items that may not be shared during public comments, our staff are available to address your concerns or provide information. Dr. Brad Breedlove, Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Bashan Harris, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, and Jared McCraw, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, are here to assist. We have one person signed up tonight, and that is Commissioner Dennis Rape with the Board of County Commissioners, and he will be allotted 5 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chair, and board members. This is a night that I had cherished would come. As we all know, and I'm going to quote some things tonight that other great people said. I believe it was Robert Kennedy said, "If not us, who? And if not now, when?" Well, right after I got on the Board of Commissioners, I set up a meeting with some of my friends with the city council, and I told them that, and they looked at me like I had created that saying myself. But we have found that we have a lot of things in common. And I can tell y'all that from what I'm hearing, we are at a great point between the two boards. I think it's the best it's ever been. I believe Dr. Houlihan and our manager, they talk every 2 weeks as far as the virtual meeting. You know, COVID was a terrible thing, and I lost a bunch of friends, and I know y'all did too. But some things that came out of it, it showed us our weaknesses, but it also made us realize our strengths. And last night, as you all know, the commissioners voted to help the school nurses with a bonus. I did not vote for it because I excused myself because both of my children are school nurses. And so, and we just wanted to keep everything, you know, good, but it passed 4-0. I should have done, they told me if I hadn't asked to be excused, then my vote would be an affirmative. I think I did that one time before. Just a little joke, but I can tell you that our staff and y'all speaks volumes about y'all's staff. And this is what I had envisioned could happen. If people will talk, they will find commonalities and they will define differences, and then they'll start working on them. When I look at people, and I know everybody in the school system, both board members, central office staff, and teachers. They have really been pulled all different ways. As Ms. Hinetail says, it's like herding cats. And then now you had to stay 6 feet away from them, so it's really hard to hurt them. I am proud to say that we did that, and I have to give credit to Deputy Manager Michelle Lancaster. We have a management team. They don't always do everything right. They may step on some toes, but they are the best people, short of y'all when I was here, that I have ever worked with. Y'all all know I speak my mind, and I think the other commissioners have been speaking their mind, and we have come to a point, we're going to make this thing work somehow, some way. And not that it wasn't working, but it's just Union County has too much. And I want to say something tonight about the school system. I do realize that Union County has the best school system in the state. So you don't have to say that no more, except when you're strangers, because I've heard people tell me the reason they relocated their company was because of the schools, the taxes, and just the country folks that are here. I don't know if y'all heard the numbers, but there was 5,150 people vaccinated Friday and Saturday. We did bring in charter schools and surrounding schools. We were sad to find out that Anson County schools were not getting many vaccines at all. And I would be remiss not to tell you that Atrium Union has been a tremendous help. And I also want to touch on the new system that I understand y'all are putting in place. I may say it wrong. You're going from the AS400 to the Minix or the whatever. Munix. Well, once I heard that story and then heard our side of the story, Union County was on AS400 till 1996. And I will tell you, when y'all told them y'all were still on AS400, it answered a lot of questions that our management staff had, because they basically said, bless y'all's heart. So, Dr. Houlihan, tonight I can tell you that Manager Watson, we have what we designate as super users. These are Munix gurus. I think it's 5 ladies. And he has agreed at any time that y'all need help to push stuff in, to get used to it, that he will work with you on that and make them available. Let me see. I also know that we are working, and I think we're going to announce at our joint meeting that we're going to work with y'all to get the architectural and engineering in place for the proposed new Forest Hills High School. And part of that, and that's not a commitment, but that I'm pretty sure it's a done deal. We have not voted on it yet, but and part of that effort was to try to get us back on track to if we'd had a bond when y'all wanted a bond. And I just want you to know we make mistakes, but don't hold the mistakes against us if we try to make them right. And that's what I just want y'all to know. We appreciate you. We know that you've got a state that's telling you what to do, but not giving you all the money to do it, the unfunded mandate. So I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope that this is the beginning of something great. I know with 40,000 plus students and 54 schools and multiple buildings, when we talked about how many buildings y'all have, it's mind blowing. And when I think Kathy told them how many square feet of roof that y'all have, it's mind blowing again. So I think of the movie Crocodile Dundee, where Mick Dundee's girlfriend asked him, "Do y'all have counselors here?" And he said, "I don't know what a counselor is." And he said, "It's somebody you talk to and they help you work out your problems." And he said, "Well, we got Walt." And she said, "Well, how does Walt do?" He said, "You tell Walt your problem. Walt tells everybody in town your problem, and you ain't got no problem no more." So I think that's what I've tried to do, explain the things I could and sort of back off from the things I couldn't. I do appreciate this opportunity. I do remember in this same building, I actually tricked Dr. Houlihan into calling Dr. Breedlove before he was Dr. Breedlove. So the reason I all these guys, when I went to Monroe High School, that was Dr. Breedlove's first year as an assistant principal, I believe. And Lord, when I saw him with the gray hair, I couldn't believe it. But I know why, because I just want to say, we know y'all are doing all you can do. Our county manager has his grandchildren, 6 and 7 years old. And he understands very well what teachers are going through. And I asked him how it goes, and he said it's like a Catholic school. If they don't follow, they get popped on the knuckles. So it's very good to come speak to y'all. I ran into Pastor Benchen about 2 weeks ago at breakfast with Mark, and they had a lot of good conversations. I've learned just when you get the right people together, just to step back and let them enjoy a conversation. And I hope to get to meet you. I know all your other ones, all the other board members, Todd, Matt, Gary, Melissa, Kathy, Jimmy, and Sarah, and Mr. Kirkpatrick. I'll try to get. What church are you at? Okay. Well, I'm excited to come in here because it's always good to come in with something good to talk about. And I would also like to point out, we have got y'all sort of fast tracked on the consent agenda. And when y'all staff talks to our staff, consent, because we get it worked out before. Thank y'all. Appreciate the job y'all are doing. And everybody has my phone number, can get a hold of me if you need me. And I will do everything I can to help Union County Public Schools continue to be what they are, the best in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rape. And I too would like to say a special thank you to Assistant County Manager Michelle Lancaster. She has been a really great resource to our schools and to our nurses. And I would be remiss to say a special thank you to our Assistant Superintendent, Jared McCraw, who I believe has been an amazing liaison with our two nurse supervisors, Mr. Joyner and Michelle Lancaster. So we cannot be more appreciative of you being here tonight and recognizing the amazing work that our school nurses have been doing, not only for our schools, but for our entire county in contact tracing and getting vaccines out in Union County. So thank you very much.
And I can tell you, I would come to somebody's house.
Thank you. We'd appreciate that. That brings us to open session meeting minutes. I would like to have a motion to approve February 2nd and February 11th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joe. For those of you who don't know, we have Mr. Morial by phone today, so thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. We will now move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Houlihan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members and public. I would like to begin by saying a big congratulations and welcome to Reverend John Kirkpatrick to the Board of Education. We all look forward to getting to know you and working with you in your new capacity. If you need anything from us, please do not hesitate to ask. Our senior leadership team will be following up with you after this meeting to talk about some onboarding processes. So welcome to the board and welcome to Team UCPS. We're glad to have you. As you heard Mr. Rape comment, I want to publicly thank our partners, Atrium Health, specifically Mike Lutz and Denise White, and Union County Health Department, including our Health Department Director, Dennis Joyner, for hosting a large vaccination clinic last Friday and Saturday. I also want to say a big thank you to our school nurses who staffed the clinic. For UCPS, more than 2,000 employees took advantage of this opportunity, and that number did include substitutes. We have heard absolutely nothing but amazing positive comments about the event, about how smoothly it was, how thankful our teachers and staff all have been for that opportunity to keep us safe. So thank you all. And I also would like to say and echo Ms. Merrill's comments. First of all, thank you to our board for your support of our school nurses and staff. And thank you to the Board of County Commissioners and county staff, specifically Mark Watson and Michelle Lancaster, for your effort last night at the Board of County Commissioners in support of our school nurses. We had a Zoom call with them today to announce that, and the tears were flowing, tears of joy and thankfulness. So thank you all. Well, it is February. Actually, it's not February. It's March. Last week was February, and we had football. It was great to see our student athletes, band members, cheer teams on the field Friday night. Yes. I want to give a big shout out to our high school principals, ADs, coaches, and Nelson Gardner for working hard to make this happen in a very short period of time. We certainly hope to have better weather this Friday, but good luck to all of our high school teams and JV and varsity, and very happy to have spring sports, winter sports back in spring. It's a great thing. We also, as a reminder, we kicked off our annual Books and Brackets event, which is our reading competition for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade last year, but due to COVID, we only made it to the Sweet 16. Well, it's back. We kicked that off last week. Our schools are ready. They have been reading, and we are going to be announcing our Sweet 16 this Thursday at 1 o'clock on Facebook Live. So follow us throughout the month of March to see who advances each week. We have a brand new bracket prepared. We will hold an abbreviated virtual program on March 31st to announce the winner. Good luck to all of our schools and to our students. Keep reading, and best of luck. Board members, this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have an easement request at Wesley Chapel Elementary, and we will hear a presentation from Mark Strickland.
Ms. Merrill, Mr. Burnett has been in contact with DOT, so he will be making that presentation tonight. And I'd just like to add, it was a great night to play football in the new stadium at Sun Valley High School. It was great.
Thank you. And Preston, if you could, there you go. Just wanted to put that image up there. That's not in board docs, but that might help some of you with this easement. Wanted to, in addition to the information that you have provided, for you, number one, staff is asking for the Board of Education to approve the temporary construction easement agreement at Wesley Chapel Elementary School. We have presented this information to the Facilities Committee back in April of 2019 and again in February of 2020. Now in 2021, NCDOT is seeking the approval of a temporary construction easement. It allows them to build the driveway on the property. And this is, again, Wesley Chapel Elementary School. We see this as a significant safety improvement for our students, parents, and staff at Wesley Chapel Elementary School. As a just a reference, NCDOT estimates the cost of this work at just slightly greater than $226,000. And I'm pleased to note that there is no UCPS funding requirement for this work. So we are very happy that NCDOT is willing to do this work, and Their timing is that they would like to have the temporary construction easement approved, and then they will begin the work to construct this. They are thinking this spring. That's a May timeframe. It could be a late April start, and that they hope to finish most of it by July 1. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have some questions. So in your email to staff, you stated that you feared that if we did not fast track this decision tonight, that we would lose in excess of $226,000 in funds. How did you arrive at that number?
That was NCDOT's estimate of the project. So they did a takeoff of all the materials and the work that's required. I did ask for that information just so that I knew how much they were planning to spend.
And if they are doing that work, it said that you were in fear that we would lose those funds. Were you anticipating that we would receive $226,000 or more if we agreed to do this work for the DOT?
I think if we did not agree with the agreement for the TCE, that they would find another project to spend the money on.
So will Union County Public Schools be receiving $226,000? $226,000?
No, they would be paying a contractor to construct the road, which they estimate to cost $226,000.
So why were you in fear that we would lose $226,000 if we did not fast track this decision tonight?
Feared that we would lose the project, and the project value was $226,000.
And I want to clarify who is doing the work.
NCDOT, the answer that they provided was that at first they were thinking that they would do it in-house. I think it is larger than they can schedule at this time. So the last that I heard was that they were going to bid the work.
At any point in time, did you recommend that NCDOT, whether it's approved tonight or not, did you at any time advise them that it would be more beneficial to do this work when students are not in school and parents are trying to access that campus rather than beginning this work in April and May through July?
They asked, I said the preferred time would be summer, and they asked about the springtime. Looking at where the work is and how it can be separated from the school activities, I said that it could also happen at the same time.
So you're not concerned about the disruption to this campus and the traffic problems around this intersection?
Fortunately, this isn't going to be working at the intersection. It will be remote.
But it's still on the road that has traffic problems.
So this is going to be coming off of Chamwood, and that is a low volume traffic road. The work is really going to be, I'd say, cross country. It will be behind the school. It's where the woods are. And that I don't see it interfering at all with traffic circulation. What they will do is they should build the driveway first. There is a little bit of scope of work that is up at Highway 84, but they'll wait on that till they finish the new driveway. Once that is finished and school is out, that's when they would demo that little connector. And that's really just the right-of-way area. So it's just the asphalt that's in the right-of-way of Highway 84.
So this will be a permanent road across our property.
It would be a driveway. So it's not a state road.
Okay, excuse me. So this will be a permanent driveway across our property.
That's correct. It will be built out of aggregate, gravel and asphalt. But the easement, that's up for tonight is going to be a temporary construction easement. So once the construction is done, the easement goes away.
And we would own the driveway. And we would own the driveway at that time once they construct it?
That's correct.
So instead of having an entrance off of Weddington Road to go into when you go into drop off, you go up and around and you come back down and you let out at the school. And then there's also teacher staff parking in that area. So instead, you would come in off of Chamwood
Yes.
and you would do the same loop that they do now, but it would go out onto Chamwood, correct? Okay.
Yes, currently it's a congested intersection. I'm talking about Potter Road and Highway 84. Some of the congestion is our traffic, especially at the times of school opening and school closing. So our traffic wouldn't actually be going through that intersection anymore. So we would avoid it, and that would be a good thing.
So was this on your recommendations for the CIP, that we needed a road to reduce this congestion?
At one point, we did kick around the idea of putting it on there. We wanted somebody else to pay for it. I'm not sure if we put it on for a future year or not, but the hope was that somebody else would pay for it, and NCDOT is willing to pay for it.
Because I never heard it mentioned for the CIP.
I'm not sure if you did.
Okay. Well, and you and I usually meet before the CIP is printed, and I never heard you express this concern before on a 5-year, on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year need.
Yeah, and like I said, it may have appeared in a future year. I don't know. We would always be wanting to. Again, we had the hopes that NCDOT would go ahead and fund this project. This project is basically 2 years old, so it's really not that old, especially in DOT terms.
So that brings me to my next question. This project is 2 years old. When do you foresee this roundabout being put in front of Wesley Chapel? I heard that it might be another 2 years before they put this roundabout in. Is that true?
So NCDOT did not commit as to the timetable for the roundabout construction. I had asked if it was coming right on the heels of this project, but they said no, and they couldn't commit as to when it is. But certainly feels like it's within the next couple of years, with them, but
So
nothing that they could commit to.
I'm just interested why it had to be fast tracked tonight if this is going to be kicking the bucket down the road 2 more years.
Well, number one, just doing the project independent of the roundabout, I think is a good thing. It is from a safety aspect, it is a very good thing. So if the roundabout never happened, I would be recommending that we grant this temporary construction easement and have DOT.
Which brings me back to the CIP, because you've never mentioned it before.
I think that what we've talked about the last couple of years is that we were hoping somebody else would pay for it. And because it came, so originally the DOT was going to put in turn lanes. Instead of doing a roundabout, they were going to put a right turn lane. Dave, and correct me, Mr. Burnett, if I'm wrong. And that's when the first time we talked about, well, what happens to the entrance into the elementary school off of Weddington Road. And then last year when we talked about it again, when DOT came back and said, no, it's going to be a roundabout instead of turn lanes, then it became more about having to put a driveway back there. How does the school feel about this?
So through the mask, I think I detected a nice smile from Dr. Henderson. So he was very positive about it. I did talk with him as recently as today. He has been involved in this pretty much throughout this process, just touching base with them, things like that. So he was very happy. I think one of the things that he noted recently was just the staffing that's required with their current way of trying to line up the cars to get everybody to fit, on the property and not be out on Highway 84.
So will it affect the playgrounds or the walking trail or the basketball court that's there? Are we taking down trees or what's going on?
That's right. So again, that image is 2 years old. I do have drawings and they are in board docs. And if you want to see them, we can pull those up. But the route is very close to what we sketched out. It does go through the woods. And a little bit more than what we're showing on that. It does avoid the walking track, the playground, and the ball courts. NCDOT is going to construct a permanent fence that's going to be between the driveway and those items that I just mentioned.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Chamwood is very not hugely traveled. Now it will be. My question is, what will they do? So when you go, if you would go out this driveway and you go left, Potter Road is right there and you can see it there. How much will it back up to try to get people to turn, if they're turning left onto Potter Road?
So
Because it's only, there's no turn lanes, there's no nothing on Chamwood right now.
So two things. Number one, we'll talk about it before roundabout, and then we'll talk about it after roundabout. Before roundabout, right now there's a signal at that intersection. NCDOT has indicated that they would extend the northbound Potter Road green light. At those times, when it has a likelihood of backing up.
Okay.
So by extending that, it takes care of that traffic for that traffic window.
Okay, so right now we have Kevin Holder, who's a traffic coordinator who stands out on Weddington Road. And in the morning, when it's still dark, it's taking your life into your own hands on that road. Would he then go to the Potter Chamwood extension so that people can get out?
So I have talked to Jared McCraw,
Okay.
and if you want to talk with that, you certainly can. But certainly it's something that would need to be looked at to see if there is an issue and whether that needs to be a solution. And I don't want to speak for you, but that might be a solution.
I believe with the traffic director, what we would do is make an assessment of what's going on. He would not be needed. If
But-
this project is done, we would not have him on 84
Okay,
anymore.
there's also the bus lot though on Potter. So you have a lot in that little section on between Weddington Road and Chamwood, there's a bus lot there too. So is it something you would look into as to whether,
Yes, ma'am. We would, with him on 84 right now, it is becoming more difficult year by year because we have more traffic and more traffic on 84. So moving it to Chamwood Road or Shamwood would help Mr. Holder a great deal. And as you said, in the morning, it is very difficult, but we would have to make an assessment once
okay,
it's all done, because I know this drawing is preliminary, but once it's done, we would know where we would put people to make it safe for our buses and our car riders.
okay.
It's my understanding that 84 has been approved to go 4-lane. Have you had any discussion with DOT about that?
It's not, it stops at Waxhaw Indian Trail. So it doesn't go all the way to Potter Road.
Okay.
And if it ever happens, but it's supposed to right now stop at Waxhaw Indian Trail. So it doesn't go that far.
As a traveler of that area a lot, to including just today, and as I drove by it, I thought about this tonight. And if the schematic is and just driving it, that would take in a lot of cars. That would really, really help those folks, because you catch that thing at the wrong time of day, you better have a lunch and 2 drinks, because you're gonna be there a while. But that would really suck up a lot of cars, in there. Are they gonna do anything with Chamwood at all?
It's not in this project, no.
Okay. But that would help them a lot.
For Chamwood, so I travel it every day. It's a small road right now that's not done, it goes in between Potter and Newtown, and that's about it.
So this leads me to this question. Is this new road going to become a cut through for the Chamwood or a way to avoid that intersection? Are we creating a cut through behind our or across our property?
Terrific question. And the answer is no, because there is no other exit. So the access to Highway 84 is going to be terminated. So there won't be a way to get from the school's parking lot onto Highway 84.
You mean in 2 years? Or
Now,
whenever they get to it?
when they build this also includes the demo of the connection to Highway 84. I'm sorry?
They build the driveway.
When they build the driveway, they will then do the demo, which is right there at Highway 84. There's just a strip of land. It's in the right of way, NCDOT's right of way. That asphalt, that is our connector. It's our driveway currently to Wesley Chapel Elementary School. That will be demoed and will be removed. And so there won't be a connection to Highway 84.
How soon?
That's part of this project.
Okay. I mean, because I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years for
Oh, no.
this and say, well, you told us this would not be a cut through.
Yeah, it would not work. They have to demo that. It is part of the scope.
I'll just end by saying I have never been a fan of having roundabouts in front of schools. We have one in front of Sardis. I expressed my concerns years ago about these roundabouts and the confusion and the chaos with buses and parents. And quite frankly, I don't care that they're offering us $226,000 to create this access road. But I understand everyone, what they're having to say about, but the NCDOT, putting these roundabouts in front of our elementary schools is a concern of mine and always has been. And I am really concerned that now they want to do this while parents during drop-off time, and I don't understand why we had to fast-track this and not try to get something done during the summer, like we don't have enough issues to deal with at our campuses, and that this couldn't be done when school was out, and that they want to get started in the middle of chaos.
I make a motion that we approve the temporary construction easement agreement.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that brings us to the McKibben presentation with Dr. McKibben and Mark Strickland.
This mask also doubles as a muzzle. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, and chairperson, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Here to do a presentation for the 2020 series population enrollment forecast for the Union County Public School District. Like just about everything else in 2020, forecasting has been, how should I put this, somewhat challenging. We're dealing with issues that we haven't had to deal with in demography for about 100 years now. So, but as always, these are forecasts, not projections. We're trying to put models together to forecast your both population and your enrollment over the next 10 years. A side note before I even get into the assumptions as I normally do. We drive these off of a population forecast. And if you'll notice, you declined about 1,500 students in 2020. You did not have 1,500 students leave the district. It was using or exercising other educational options. And this is a point I'm going to go over again. It's very common, not just here in Union County or North Carolina, but all over the country, all the districts are working on. There's a propensity to look at that decline where you had in most districts average anywhere from 4 to 7% decline this year in enrollment. as people went to private school, homeschool, other options. It wasn't all COVID and people disappearing. Most of it was, yes, but part of it was a drop in migration. Mobility in the United States has just gone through the floor. People aren't moving. We'll get back to this again. Talked about the housing market too. So yes, about 75% of the decline was due to parents using other educational options. But about a quarter of it was a drop in migration. And again, a school district like Union County, which is dependent upon in-migration of young families to maintain their population enrollment, is a very, very, very key issue. Also, this we call COVID drop was not evenly distributed across the district. We tended to see more decline, particularly in grades K1, 2, and 3, and mostly in the higher socioeconomic areas. So we assume, and we'll have this as part of the assumptions too, that you'll get about 80% of those COVID decommits back next September if you're back full-time in-person instruction by September of 21, and all of your neighboring districts are back full-time in-person instruction by September of 21. If you are not and your neighbors are, I'm going to be too high in my forecast. If you are, your neighbors are not, I'm going to be too low. Okay, the very, very key assumption right now. So, number one, the economy. We're still in a pretty nasty recession right now, although it's not near as bad as it was 3 quarters ago. If we stay out of deep recession, which is 4 consecutive quarters of 1% reduction GDP, we're in good shape. The bigger thing here is the mortgage rates. It stays below 4.5%. Earlier this month, they were below 3% for the 30-year fixed. It's the golden time for getting a mortgage. We'll see an increase in mortgage rates, but it's probably going to stay below 4.5% unless something really drastic happens, like Tesla goes under or something, or discovers a shell game. Everything currently planned, and approved, or built out and completed by 2930. Don Ogram has sent us a detailed by cluster, by attendance area listing of all the currently planned, approved, and active subdivisions. We use as our base to use in the forecast by attendance area. No additional privates or charters open. The unemployment rate stays below 8.5%. It's been dropping. It's still higher than traditional average. And your transfer rate stays the same. An average of 80% of all students that went to other options in 20 returned by fall of 21. Inflation rate stays the same. Housing turnover rate. And I should stop at this juncture and talk about the housing market. And this is a nationwide phenomenon right now. If you go out and look at the housing market right now, if you put an existing home on the market, it sells in like about 38 minutes. Okay. Usually at full price, if not more. The builders are trying to push everything for the developers, anything they got on the books, they're trying to go forward right now, and they're selling as soon as they're built. So anecdotally, you'd look out there and you would think it's a white hot housing market right now. Okay. The problem is, and if you talk to any realtor in Union County or North or South Carolina or anywhere in the country right now, they will tell you that the supply of existing homes in the market is at a 50-year low. It's never been that low. Why? Because the elderly just aren't moving. They're not downsizing. Why would they want to move any place? You want to stay close to your family, your support system, your doctor, your medical technician, all that. Mobility in this country is almost non-existent compared to past trends. So those who are putting their homes in the market, and you're selling right now about maybe 60% of your normal rate right now in the normal slow time. And it's not just Union County, it's all over the country right now. And it goes in the market, it's sold. And this is happening right at the same time where the peak of the baby boom is turning 65. They will start selling again. They will start moving and downsizing probably later in 22 or 23. So those who didn't downsize right in 20 and 21 will be downsizing 2 or 3 years. We're forecasting that to pick back up again. And since existing home sales is 85% of your housing market, that's a very, very key variable. The builders can build all they want and make up for that shortfall in existing housing stock. They can't build them fast enough to make up for all of it. So you will see a lot more new homes coming on the next year, maybe 18 months. But after 2022, 23, you're going to see a spike in your existing home sales, and the areas that are going to have a lot of downsizing will be the recipients of that. So on the short term, it's new home construction. On the middle and long term, it's going to be existing home sales. And that's distributed all over the district. As always, we'll start with the population pyramid. This is 2010 census, or our basis. Go back real quick for those who haven't seen this before. Your preschoolers, elementary, middle school, high school, 20 to 34, family formation ages. 35, 54, the ages most people have kids in school. Your empty nesters are 55 to 69. And here is your downsizing ages. And because you have so few apartments in the area, you don't have that many 20-year-olds in family formation. That's why you have a deficit in the 0 to 4. Okay. So you need in-migration of young households with kids to build up that preschool cohort just to break even. The 2020 estimate, which we calculated, everybody got 10 years older. Okay. But these people here are the ones that moved in. These were very small bars 10 years ago in the 20s. This is your in-migration rate. So you have still a large number of people with kids in school, and they brought children with them. But you'll notice that 0 to 4 bar is still shorter than 5 to 9. So if no one moves in the next 5 years, you're looking to drop in enrollment. You need to have about 1,200 households moving in per year just to break even on your enrollment. Okay. But you can also see you're having an increase in households that will be turning over in the next 10 years, but you've already got a very, very large proportion of your households in empty nest ages, and will be continuing. It'll still be your fastest growing household type in the next 10 years in the district will be empty nesters. Now that's going to vary from a tenants area to a tenants area. It's going to be a slower or lesser rate in like around the toll road. It's going to be a more rapid pace the farther west you go in the district that had a lot of the development 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. They're all empty nesting right now. So, but as a macro view of the entire district, this is your general trend. Okay. This is your LibAttend. Again, we had Cropper GIS do the LibAttend analysis for this. Geocode your kids back to their home attendance area. Still picking up some of the residual of the grandfathering from the last redistricting. Just a few outliers. Of course, the big one is Weddington. 127 that live out the 10 in. As the last of the grandfathering goes away this next year, this number will drop. And then you have a few that live in 10 out. East, or looks like Rock there, is probably the outlier here. Not too many. You've really done a good job in tightening up your borders, having kids attend the school they're designated to, except for some kind of special programs. Much better than it was 2 or 3 years ago. We just had a lot of grandfathering going on from the last redistricting. And not only is it approved in the elementary schools, it's also approved in the middle schools. Again, the one outlier here, the highest one is Weddington, but not too many that live in and attend out. Maybe some coming out of Monroe. But for a district this size, these numbers are not that large at all. Again, this is a vast improvement. And then again, on high school, you have quite a few going to special programs, which accounts for a lot of the attend out. And again, the outlier, Weddington, which had a lot of kids coming in from Marvin Ridge. Again, this is mostly grandfathering, and this should mostly disappear the next year, if not by 22. I think that should all be pretty much gone. Okay, going to the population forecast, and again, this is a key point. You didn't have 1,500 kids and the corresponding parents leave the district, so it basically helped your enrollment, your population aspect of it. And again, this is the 2010 base. This is the estimate for this year. Forecast for 25 and 30. Median age, which continues to increase because of the large empty nesting. These columns in the middle of the components have changed. 12,000 birth, you see it drops off slightly. You're seeing the deaths go up dramatically. This is not due to COVID. This is due to the aging of the population. COVID's not been factored in yet. We still don't have data from CDC to accurately measure that. Your natural increase declines. Net migration still holds constant. But again, your largest out-migration flow is 18 to 22-year-olds going off to college. Your second largest flow is over 70 population. Your biggest in-migration flow is people 25 to about 40 years old coming out to the suburbs and bringing 0 to 9-year-olds with them. You'll note here consistently, if you follow the 0 to 4 cohort, which is now 5 to 9, 10 to 14, cross line, you need to have about over 2,000 in that age cohort move in the next 5 years just to break even, okay? Because you don't have enough births in the district to maintain your elementary enrollment at current levels. And again, this trend varies from attendance area to attendance area. In your final report, you'll find a forecast, a pop forecast, enrollment forecast for each elementary area. So, but this is a generalized trend. This drop off in the 20 to 24 is your high school seniors going off to college. You're counted where you go to school, not where you're from. And since Union County has an extraordinarily high proportion of their high school graduates go on to post-secondary education, that's why it's your biggest out-migration flow. They graduate, they go off to college, and as a rule, they don't come back, okay? So you don't marry the boy or the girl next door, you marry the boy or the girl next dorm, and you go off someplace else. So these people moving out here, 20, 24, 29, 30, 34, 35, 39, as a rule, 95% of them did not grow up here. It was a whole different generation. So the results of the POP forecast drives the enrollment forecast. And again, you didn't have 1,500 kids leave or 1,300 kids leave. That's using other options. We forecast about 80% of those coming back. Now, most of the people who chose the other options, kindergarten, first, second, third, not just here in Union County, but just about every school district in the country. And the biggest concern was kindergarten. And we're seeing a phenomenon here we're calling redshirting. You don't have to go to kindergarten. And a lot of people, particularly if their child was born, if your kindergarten cutoff date September 1, those born in June, July, and August, they decide, well, let's hold them back a year. They have that option. And we're seeing a huge amount of that. So most of this drop was in kindergarten. Preschools, if you had them, just went through the floor. No one sent their kids preschool this year. So it's what it's going to do to varying degrees. It's going to create a deficit and a bubble behind it. It's going to work your way through the schools probably for the next 10 to 12 years. Okay, you're going to have abnormally small first grades next year and abnormally large kindergartens as those redshirters have now been pushed back a year. So, and that's going to vary from attendance area to attendance area. And it may be big enough to go from 3 sections to 4 to 5, whatever the case may be. This is something as planners who are looking for staffing, you're going to need to be aware of and keep an eye on for at least the next 4 or 5 years. And to be honest, we won't know how big the deficit in that cohort and how much the bubble will be the year after that until we start seeing enrollments next year. Right now, we've got it forecasted at basically flat, but you can see now this year, your kindergarten cohort was 400 students lower than your first grade, okay? A radical departure from your past trends. So, but overall on the, I'm sorry, I don't mean to hit you on all that, but K-5, a big pop back up next year, but basically it stays pretty flat. You stay at about the 16,000 range, Okay. The middle schools, again, flat to a slight decline, and the high schools starting to drop off. You've got smaller cohorts in your late elementary and your middle schools aging into your high schools. Okay. But basically, you're almost the same enrollment in 2030 as you are in 2020, right about not quite 40,000. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer. You're going to see a lot of changes within the district. So what I've done here, but I don't want to go through all of them, I've done an overview by cluster, okay? And look at that, the high school clusters. So start with Cuthbertson. Peak wave is currently in high school right now. A slow decline in middle school and elementary the next 10 years due to empty nesting. Cuthbertson's going to have the fastest rate of empty nesting in the next 10 years, particularly after 2025, okay? If you look at the feeder schools that go into Cuthbertson, their cohorts are much, much smaller than the ones in middle school and high school right now. What would it take to change that? About 500 new households moving in per year the next 5 years. Not that much building going on, and certainly not enough empty nesting unless you have a whole bunch of people in their early 50s leave. Forest Hills is mostly stable with a small decline in high school enrollment the next 5 years. This is probably, Forest Hills and Monroe are probably the two most demographically stable ones in the district. Marvin Ridge, enrollment rate is currently in middle and high school, declined sharply up to 2025. This has, Rayview, Sandy Ridge, right in there, are huge drop-offs in the elementary grades compared to what's in the middle and high right now. They'll be full till 2025, but after that, there's not enough turnover. There's not enough building going on. There's hardly any building going on in that area now. And again, when you talk about building, you literally need hundreds of new households or new homes being built in an area, and then turnover on top of it. Monroe has got a high occupancy rate for the apartments. That's going to keep the enrollment steady throughout the decade. Parkwood, a lot of new construction on the North Carolina 75 corridor, keeps enrollment steady till 25. Then they'll have an increasing rate of turnover. More of those households will be over age 70 and give a slight growth after that. Piedmont, new home and turnover, they have both going on here. Modest but sustained enrollment growth this decade, but only in the middle and the elementary grades. It's going to be, as you go through the decade, there's a lot more preschoolers in this area, some turnover, some people bringing in with new home construction, and it's going to be kind of a slow building wave going through your middle and your elementary. By 23, it doesn't quite get to the high school yet. If we took these out 5 more years, you start seeing some increase in Piedmont's high schools. Porter Ridge, sustaining continuous enrollment growth throughout the decade due to new home construction turnover. This out by the toll road, that's where the action's going to be at the next 10 years. Sun Valley also sustained and continuous growth. Increase rate is lower than Porter Ridge, and the reason for that is not quite as high a rate of housing turnover. It's a slightly younger area for the existing homeowners. And finally, Weddington, a slow decline after 24 due to empty nesting. However, there's still a measurable amount of, significant amount of new home construction. So it causes the decline to be slower and smaller than you have at Cuthbertson. So again, there's some, I always have to look at these local trends of what's going on, particularly the feeder elementary areas. And I did that in 20 minutes, which is pretty good for me. So, questions?
More of a comment than a question. I can attest to what you're saying about the empty nesters. We just, our family, we just have one student left at home, and we would like to downsize. But when you go to look at the properties downsize to, it's basically around the same prices as what you're going to be selling your current house for.
And less square footage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I lose my 3-car garage. So forget it.
We're trying to downsize now too, because our neighborhood's all full of us elderly. So I'm now 65, so I'm officially, I call it elderly. But my wife's on Zillow all the time, and smaller house, more money, it's just, and it's everywhere, unless you want to live in West Virginia, and who wants to move there? So, yeah, not where I want to retire to.
I hope they're not listening.
They're all down here now, so they don't really care.
So Dr. McKibben, when we went through the realignment process with you in 17 and 18, there was a conversation back then when we were wrapping up the realignment with you that we could potentially be closing schools in 4 to 5 years. Now that you've had this opportunity to come back and do a 2020 analysis and revisited all the data for our schools and our communities, do you see that today, that we could, with all of the decline in birth rates and everything, that this board would possibly be considering closing any schools?
Not at this time, given the distribution of where your students are going to be, where your buildings are. You're still going to have some that are going to be light, and some that are smaller enrollment than you've traditionally had in those areas. Of course, Rayview comes to mind on that. But some of the areas that have maybe some of the lower utilizations is what I refer to protected by geography. They're out in sparsely populated areas. You really couldn't close a school in that area because of the transportation considerations. The kids literally would be on the bus for an hour to go to school, which is very detrimental for particularly elementary age. And also some of those areas that were declining very sparse also have the highest proportion of elderly householders over the age of 70. So you will start seeing some turnover. So it'll not so much a decline, but at least a stabilization coming later in the decade, because those homes do tend to be more cheaper by square foot, more land, things like that. So there's a certain attractiveness to it. I think you probably could not have to close any schools. You may want to repurpose a couple or something, but I don't think you're going to need closing.
So I'm very happy to hear you say that, because it does, the report does show a lot of decline. And I just remember you kind of preparing us for that, when we went through this several years ago.
Well, the good news is, for a long time, you had so many portable units out here too, so areas that are seeing, if it was literally if you had 800 students in a building of 800, it's now shrinking to 600. That's one thing. If you have 800 kids in an area, school with 10 portables out back, and you now don't have to use those portables, well, it's more right sizing to the actual population. You're getting rid of the portables. That's a good thing. So I get the good news that you don't have to close schools. You can get rid of all these portable units, or at least move them someplace else.
Right.
So
So the other question I had is, when we wrapped up realignment several years ago, you made the comment that realignment in 2017-18 would last, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
So now that we're further down the road in 2020, do you see that we need to make any realignments, or did everything work out better than we expected?
Well, I have to be brutally honest here, ma'am. In 2017, I didn't see a pandemic coming in 3 years, so I missed that one. You're down 1,300 overall this year. It's kind of awful hard to say. Yeah, it's really going to come back to, do you have 80% come back next year? If let's assume they do, I would say no. You don't need to do a full scale realignment. Now, to be honest, we don't know how this is going to play out as we go into 21 and 22, and how the housing market's going to hold up. You might have to do some tweaks in there. Maybe some small area realignment in one individual cluster, things like that. But a broad, sweeping, district-wide realignment, you're probably good till at least the middle of the decade, if not farther on. But I would be remiss to say that you wouldn't have to do a tweak or two here because of, do I dare say any of them that you may want to read?
I would be very interested in you saying which ones that you think we should keep an eye on and
Well, anybody who
monitor.
knows me knows what I'm going to say is take the territory out of Antioch and put it in Rayview. You know, that's the same thing I was saying for the last 12 years. So
I think you said that in 17 as well.
I
Uh-huh.
did 17, said it in 14, said it in 08, said it in 10. I probably said it before I moved down here, but
So what else?
that would be remiss. You might want to take a look at Porter Ridge area because you're going to see some pressure there, and the recent decision to maybe take some potential growth into Sun Valley. And again, it's hard to judge potential growth. The developers are all gung ho right now, but as soon as you start seeing a lot of existing homes get dumped on the market and they're having trouble selling them, they'll back off on their plans. So you're really trying to plan for a moving target here. So I wouldn't do anything rash with new development because I don't see that continuing. You will see a rise in interest rates and you will see more existing homes go in the market. We know that for sure. It's just a question of how much, how fast, and when. And I think it's going to be earlier than later. Once we come out of COVID, all these people who didn't downsize in 20 and 21, if they can find something that's halfway decent, are going to hit the road. My favorite stat I tell people in this country, every day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65, 8,000 turn 70. And Union County is not immune to that trend.
I have a question. So, we can manage growth sometimes or manage pockets where we have more enrollment than other places by programming as well too.
Absolutely.
By moving programming to schools that don't have those tight fits.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm thinking, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you've got an elementary school that's at this time very, very full, and you get a preschool program in there, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Okay.
My-
It's much easier to move programs than it is boundaries. And also I think a very in-depth examination of where your non-traditional programs are placed. That's a great way to solve two problems, one of overcrowding, one of underutilization. As long as it makes sense and it does it, you're putting, some kind of special project 20 miles away from people who
Right.
use it,
Well, when you talked about Weddington Elementary and the out of boundaries of
the grandfathering.
it wasn't so much as grandfathering. We have a dual language program there.
Right.
And it allows siblings to go there as well. So
Yep.
I think that some of that is there too. My other question was about the 2020 census, just so you could, I know that data has not come out yet. So how do you feel about your projections based on not
These? Oh, they're rock solid. I mean, there's plus or minus 2%, if that, probably
Oh, now it's
less.
2%, not 1 anymore? It's 2?
Well, I mean, we're going through a pandemic. Even I've got to cut some ground there. But how do you model fear? That's what I've been telling people when I do the models this year. I mean, people are just scared. I don't want to put my kid in school because it might put them at risk. You just can't model that. So the 2020 census, like everything else in 2020, was an absolute dumpster fire. They could not have screwed it up any worse than they did. And then on top of that, someone at the Bureau has got this whole thing about privacy. So they want to infuse error in the results. It's called differential privacy. And we get our last test file here in April when the first numbers come out, and we'll be able to ascertain it. There's literally, and I mean literally, 500, 600, 700 applied demographers were across the country doing the research on this in different segments of it. And right now, all of us, and we've been together working, for 30 years. We've never been unanimous on anything. This is the first time we're telling people don't use it. It's that bad.
Could you kind of explain the differential privacy? And,
Differential privacy?
Well, I know what it is, but
okay. Differential privacy is to protect people's identities. They are infusing error at the block level. Okay. So you can't tell who is who. Well, you can't tell who is who anyway. You know, there's no names to it. It's just, you know, ages, genders, race, and ethnicity. That's it. There's no personal identification to it. But someone thinks that, wow, you can put some algorithm in there and figure out who lives there. Well, I can go down to your local county clerk, look up your property record, everything about your house is public domain data, and get all the information I want on people, or things you click on the internet. I can buy the data from anybody. You know, I don't know who they're trying to, whose privacy they're trying to protect, but all they're doing is trashing the data. So we just gave a paper at the Applied Demography Conference. We looked at different school attendance areas because we're focusing on education. Here's your 2010 population pyramid distribution. Normally, here's with differential privacy, and it was all over the place. There was a couple of blocks and tracks up in New York City they were looking at, and they came out and they had 230 school-age kids with no adults. That's how bad it is, you know. Or male and female, you know, the 0 to 4 category would be, you know, 168 females and 9 males. You know, it's just they've made sure that, you know, no one can tell anything on it. They've made the data absolutely worthless. And if they continue with that and they put out differential privacy file, now of course at the state level you really can't tell the difference, or the county, but you get down to block group or attendance area level, the data is just absolutely worthless. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but for the first time in my memory, all the demographers, all the planners, all the statisticians are going, who thought this up? You know, your tax dollars at work.
So Dr. McKibben, correct me if I'm wrong, and board members, we did have a chance to talk to him quickly before this, but I just want to make sure that everyone hears what I heard you say.
Okay.
Is that, and for anyone at home who has this question, since the 2020 census data is not available, what I understood you to say is that the work you and your team did with the differential, you know, Privacy Act, the migration data, birth rates, death rates, IRS records, use Zillow, geocoding, and all of the work that you did. The impression I got is you felt more confident in this presentation than if you had even had the 2020 census data.
At this point in time, yes, definitely. It's always good to have the most latest up-to-date data used as a base, but we're telling our clients now, if they bring out differential privacy in the census, we're still going to use 2010 as a base because it's the only reliable base you've got for age, sex, and housing data. Now, fortunately, in the last 10 years, and Union County is a great example of it, the county government has gone way above the average in providing data. We have birth data down to the county level. We have some counties that get down to a smaller level than that, death data, and we can calibrate that year by year. Housing data is very good. We got Zillow, we got Realty Track, we've got, you know, the local county clerks data. Those who cooperate with us, in many counties they do, they actually give us a geocode of their housing, both new and existing. Don's been really great about giving us a tracking of what's planned subdivisions, things like that. The new building is easy, okay? You got a plan approve it. We're going to put this many houses in it and all that. This is what they're going to cost. This is how big they're going to be. That's always been real easy. The hard part's been that 85% of the housing market is existing home sales. That's where Zillow and Realty Track comes in, the county clerks. I mean, my dog could do new home construction. That's a piece of cake. How are you going to figure out who's going to move where in what area? Zillow, you get it right down to the tract level. You know, not in the tract, parcel level, actual house level. So yeah, the data that's out there to help support annual forecasts is much, much better than it was 10 years ago. I'd still like to have a new base to work off of, But if it's not there, there's many other data sources, and you can't get any better than IRS migration, because if you don't check in with them, they will track you down.
They will find you.
They will find you. Yeah.
I know. I have a question. So one of the assumptions that you have on here, because this is going to be a question that we're going to get from citizens, is that all currently planned, platted, and approved housing developments are built out in, wrong one.
By 2029.
By 2029. So
Yep.
that takes into account, so you worked with Mr. Ogrim about all the new subdivisions
Right.
that have been rezoned and things like that. So those have all been taken into your account.
If they've got all their paperwork, that's got to be permitted too. I guess I should have permitted in there as well. If some developer says we're thinking about building something in this area, it's not in there. They have to have gone through the permitting process.
But so the rezoning isn't enough?
Oh, no, not rezoning. That's just step one. You can't do anything to get rezoned. Okay. Once you're rezoned, then you can start looking for water and sewer connections, platting. You have to go out and plat it, and this is how many units we're going to put in there. And they start doing that, putting infrastructure in. They're actually what we call active units. Then that's when you start putting them in, and they have like a build out scenario. Zoning is just a step one. There's land in this county that was zoned for residential housing back in 2006. It still hasn't been built on yet, so now if they're rezoning it and then they're platting it like 2 weeks later, that's pretty active. Okay. They've got to build on that. Now, right now they're trying to push everything through. So it looks like there's going to be a lot coming online.
Right.
That's because they're trying to make up for that shortfall in existing homes.
Okay.
Okay. Once that dies out, and we saw this in 08 and 09, once the demand drops off, boom, they're gone. And we saw it in 99 and we saw it in 88. But every 10 years, folks, just different reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Board members, do you have any questions?
I do. I got one or two. As far as your variables and assumptions, is there any that you see potentially minus pandemic that could throw us a loop that would be greater than the other?
I didn't hear the last part of it.
Well, like all your assumptions, is any one that could change that would change your forecast greater than the other?
Yeah, third wave will do it.
Yeah.
Vaccine failure. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm for one, I'm not convinced that we're going to have a roaring recovery myself. Spike in interest rates. Tesla going over could do that real easy. Someone's Bitcoin bet going bad. That'll do it. I just emphasize the point. People right now, I don't know, I want to use the word scared or apprehensive. Okay. There's a lot of people out there that are not real comfortable making bold moves right now. And I think talking about herd immunity, well, the herd can get spooked real easy too. A lot of hope on a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan that, may not stimulus, but right now the pass people are getting on paying their rent expires at the end of this month, and they're may not renew it. That could really change things too. There's a lot of flux out there, so hence the 2%. There's a lot more variability out there right now. One thing I didn't mention is those of us in demography are pretty much all convinced we're going to see a pretty substantial drop off in births in 2020 and maybe even more in 2021. They have been dropping for 12 years anyway. So you want, that continuing drop plus some more before it might level out maybe in 22 and 23, but you're getting smaller and smaller birth cohorts out there. Again, a lot of that's due to uncertainty.
Dr. McKibben, in closing, would you be able to advise this board, let's say, what your top three things that you recognized in this data that you recommend for this board?
The three things I would track right off the bat is what's your pace of existing home sales, particularly starting in April and May, which is the traditional home buying season. It's supposed to go up anyway. I would compare that to what the increases were in not 20, but 19 and 18 to see if you're returning to a path. 2, what is that pace of new home construction? And does it continue to try to make up for the shortfall in existing home sales? And 3, what's the economy going to do? Okay. Although unemployment rates have dropped substantially in the last 6 months, they're still high compared to what they've been the last 10 years. My old adage, if you don't have a job, you're not going to buy a house. And you need people moving out here because you just don't have enough births in the county to maintain your enrollment. And these variables may deviate from the mean, plus or minus, depending on the attendance area. So I would take a more cluster level examination. I mean, your suggestion on that's a good way to look at it. District tends to mask too much, tend to get a little more focus. We get at least cluster, but sometimes individual attendance area, you look at that too. But those are the 3 big ones I'd look at. For one reason, big reason is because it's the most potential, like Mr. Helm's saying, most potential variability in those 3 variables to go up or down. So those are the ones I'd be watching the most.
And I'm just going to add, you told us, to take a look at Antioch and Rayview.
Yeah.
And you told us that it would be very wise to look at programs, that it's a lot easier to move programs than to move families and students.
Right. Yeah.
And that was something you started seeing trends in our data.
Right. And for programs, you want to sit down and do a comprehensive examination of programs, where they're located and who they're serving. And if it's a possibility that you could move a program and put a facility closer to your clientele, you might be able to solve 2 or 3 problems at one time. But it needs to be examined vis-a-vis with your utilization, your demographic trends, your resources, where they're allocated at, where your clientele is. So I wouldn't be looking at like spot checks. Oh, I see we have too many kids here at Weddington. Let's move that. That's just kind of a pot shot. I'd look at the whole thing and put a comprehensive plan together.
Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough for
My
being
pleasure,
here
ma'am.
tonight in person to present this updated information to our board. So thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. It's like to tell people I'm far more impressive in person than I am on Zoom. So.
We enjoy talking to you on Zoom too.
Okay, that's good. So.
Don't cut yourself short.
And if there are any other questions that do come up, Don's got this nasty habit of being able to track me down no matter where I am in the country. So he can pass them on to me and all that. And
well, travel safe and
Thank you
don't be
very
a
much.
stranger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, they turned this off. Okay, I just leave this here? Yeah. Okay.
Board, that brings us to policies for review. Oh, wait. Yes, we did. I apologize. Mr. Sides, I ignored my note here. You wanted to talk about the 2021 calendar and 5 days a week.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What I'd like to do is hopefully open up a discussion to look at moving forward and perhaps reinstilling some of that confidence that Dr. McKibben talked about. It's hard to believe, but a month, here we are, March 2nd. Guess what's a month from today? Good Friday and spring break. That all next week, the 5th, we'll be out on spring break. And then the current calendar has us coming back on the 12th to all remote. We also know that our students are behind. They're struggling. It's tough virtual, especially in our elementary age kids. We also know the excellent job that our staff and health department combining with vaccination of our teachers, substitutes, and bus drivers. Our rates are dropping of infection in the state as well as in the county. We also know that we're looking at a realistic summer school for yet to be determined scope and ages. I would like to propose, and these are not necessarily connected items, but I've connected them just to get things moving faster. I would like to propose and hear everyone's comments on, upon returning from spring break, on the 12th, that we amend the calendar to have that instead of a virtual day, that for middle and high school, that would be a regular in-class day for the A group, which goes Monday and Tuesdays. And then for our elementary schools, that we return to a full 5-day a week schedule for the remainder of the school year. I think it's time to start moving forward. That is allowable under the governor's current guidelines. And I have every confidence in our facility staff to still make our buildings as safe for our students as our employees as possible. And so I would like to hear some thoughts from staff and my colleagues about such a change.
The question I have, how much trouble would that be to go 5?
So
Elementary.
let me address one part of the conversation first, which is the Monday, April 12th is a remote learning day.
Right.
As the board will remember, that requirement was made by the General Assembly and state law. And we have not been able to get clear guidance on whether or not we can move that day or any of the other remote learning days that were approved on the calendar. So I'd have to defer that decision or recommendation to Ms. Morris from a policy, legal, legislative standpoint.
I'm also concerned that people have already made their spring break plans, knowing that that was a remote learning day. So, but I mean,
That's fair enough. Well, let's
That's
kind
just
of decouple the two issues.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
address that piece right up front.
Okay, that's fine unless we get a clarification.
And we can come back to it. I think the second part about going, adding Friday as a 5th day for
In
elementary schools.
Elementary.
I think from an educational and a parent standpoint, anytime we can add more days is going to be a great thing. We have to balance this with also what our staff is going through right now and has been going through since August. I will tell the board that the one aspect of all things COVID in-person learning that our teachers and principals have asked me from day one and the board has supported is keeping Fridays as remote. I say that because we use those Fridays in a number of different ways. Number one, we use them to do some pretty good, thorough cleaning in our buildings to prepare for the next week to have children return. Number two, we use those Fridays for small group intervention support, one-on-one support, parent conferencing. Students and teachers are still teaching and learning on those Fridays, even though it's virtually. And number three, unless something changes between now and then, we have told our teachers in particular, you must be prepared to move to Plan C literally overnight because, and the board knows, we've had to do that in some schools this year. So Fridays are used to help our teachers also get about 2 weeks ahead in planning purposes, that if over that weekend or any point the following week, that building needs to go to Plan C, they have at least 2 weeks of lesson plans and plans ahead. I say all of that to say this. I'm certainly open to the discussion, Mr. Sides. The one thing that we've done very successfully is anytime the board has wanted to make a change, we've done some pretty good due diligence with principals, with our teacher advisory council, and with my principal advisory council on these recommendations. I have not had a chance as of tonight to have this discussion with those entities and would be happy to have that discussion for feedback and come back to the board with you. So I can't answer the question on as I sit today. My assumption would be that there would be advocacy to keep Fridays remote for all the reasons I said. But if the board would like me to go back to those groups and get feedback and recommendations and to also consult with our health department, I'm certainly willing to do that and would take that advice and direction from the board.
Now, that being the case, have you had any advocacy from principals, teachers, staff, anybody from that side for 5 days? Or have you had a more robust stance that this 4-day in 1 day Friday has really provided a boost that has become a great advantage to us?
I would say the latter, Reverend Benson, that it would be more of the advocacy that I've received, and that I believe Dr. Breedlove and his team have, as well as Mr. McGraw. More of the advocacy that we've gotten has been to keep Fridays as a remote learning day, for all the reasons you mentioned.
Let me just ask, we're fairly certain there's going to be a summer school of some kind, or correct?
That is correct. We're waiting to see what comes out of the
direction.
General Assembly. Yes.
If we're jumping back to, let's take for granted the 12th is not Monday is going to stay virtual. So we're looking at the possibility at the real earliest, the 19th of April, going to a 5-day week for elementary. That's basically giving staff, everyone, a month and a half to get ready. My question is, and I don't know an easy answer, how many students, because they have this 5, 6, 7, 8 extra days of in-class instruction, which I think we all could agree, particularly on the elementary level, is much more preferable than remote. How much difference could it make to tens, hundreds, who knows how many students in the elementary level to get them over the hump where summer school may not be necessary? They might catch up with an extra day, those many days, extra days of instruction. I would throw that variable in there as well. That way, when we do have the summer school, we're better able to focus on the students through tutoring and summer school instruction that really are behind even more.
Sure. I understand your point. Yeah, I understand your point, and I think that's an interesting variable for consideration. I know. I wish we had Dr. McKibben here to kind of give me a forecast, because I don't know. My only assumption I could make is, and I've said this very publicly, there is no substitute for in-person learning. We have the data to support that. So anytime we can add additional days at the elementary, middle, or high school from a teaching and learning standpoint, that'd be a great thing. But I just have to recognize the balance with our staff, our teachers, our principals, and health and safety protocols to make sure that what we are currently doing and have been doing very successfully, that we can finish the year out in that manner as well. And that's what I'm saying. I think that we all need that time to kind of dig into this a little bit and really assess all of those different variables.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily a decision or a board vote tonight would be prudent without looking at all these variables. Am I to understand that you anticipated finishing out the year on the 4-day schedule? That was your basic plan? Okay. So this is a disruption of that.
Correct. Unless we were otherwise directed by the state or at the pleasure of the board, my intent was to finish this school year out under the current model that we have for elementary schools.
Can I ask a question? So if we come back on the 12th or the week of the 12th, and then to the end of the school year, I think it's 7 weeks between
End of
that,
May.
and then 1 week of that would be EOGs, right? Because they're not getting rid of EOGs, this right? So we would be down to 6. So it would be 6 additional days. And I'm not saying that. I mean, 6 additional days could mean a lot, but I would like to hear what your people have to say.
I think if I might, Mr. Sides and Ms. Merrill, again, if the board will give me some direction, this is a conversation that we can certainly take back to our stakeholders, work with you all on how to present this back to a committee, possibly curriculum in March, to then come to the April board meeting if we feel like that's going to be a recommendation for us.
Well, the April board meeting is after spring break.
Okay. Or
So-
even before then. We can work together on timeline.
What would you feel comfortable with a timeline of coming back and saying either yes or definitely no, or here's the pros, here's the cons, you tell us what you want to do? What's your ideal timeline to try and hash this through everybody that needs to feel comfortable with it?
I don't know when our next curriculum committee meeting is, or if that's where you would want to take this, Ms. Merrill, but listen, I can move as quickly as you want me to, and I can move not as quickly. For me, it's a situation where If I know, at least give me a couple of weeks to have this process, go through the motions, talk with our key stakeholders. If we can have at least towards the end of this month or third week of March, I think that would give me at least enough time to get this going and have these discussions in order to come back with an educated recommendation to the board.
Well, really, it's back on you because you tell me how long you can take to give us the information to make a decision. And if we decide to go back to 5 days, that you have adequate time to prepare everybody. So it's kind of like you're asking me, and I'm telling where can you feel comfortable?
I need at least 2 weeks to come back and tell the board whether or not this is something that I support,
feasible,
is feasible, and that we believe is the best interest of the district.
And not only is it feasible, that you can pull it off in that time frame of the 19th.
Correct.
As you look through that time period and you go back to the stakeholders that are involved, there's one thing that's in the back of my mind, and that's this. Since we've been doing that, and we've been doing it for a while, the 4 days, do you see where there's a stabilizing and a lifting up of the grades because of stability? Do you see where the grades, where the kids and the teachers and the parents have rallied around there to the point where the grades are coming back? So addressing Mr. Syed's concern about summer school, are you seeing where the grades are stabilizing and they're not as bad from, let's just say, a season of uncertainty, but because we had a weeks and weeks and weeks of 4 days and the Friday virtual, are we seeing some stabilization in the grades?
What I would say, Mr. Benson, is I believe that our students, staff, and families have, what I would say, kind of gotten into a groove. You know, we've kind of gotten used to this, and as a result of that, and continuing to be the leader in North Carolina with offering as much in-person learning as we have since August, I have not reviewed grades recently as a data form. I'd have to defer to Dr. Breedlove and his team on that right now. But what I will tell you is anecdotally and qualitatively through teachers and principals, we're hitting our stride, and we feel much better about student success, student progress, probably than we did this time in the middle of the first semester.
Well, with that being said, I'd like to hear from some of my other colleagues, because if there is a overall consensus that we want to stay with 4 days, then don't have them do the extra work, and we'll just stay the way we are.
So I'll
Personally,
speak first.
yeah.
I'm comfortable with staying with the 4 days. My gut instinct is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think our data for our failure rates that we just went over a week or so ago were not as critical. The elementary numbers were significantly better than the middle school and high school that was only getting 2 days a week. So when I think about the data we've already received, our elementary students are not the one hemorrhaging right now. It's the middle school and high school that's only getting 2 days in person if they choose. I absolutely agree with you. When we're able to offer 5 days a week, it's going to be Christmas, whatever day that lands on. But if you think about an elementary grading period, that's a 9-week. So what you're asking for and working, trying to use the spring break calendar, to get this done, you're not even affecting one grading period. And we would be trying to do this, during EOGs. So I think it would be hard for parents and students and our staff and everyone to kind of switch gears right now. I will let the rest of the board speak, but that's just my first thoughts.
I was going to say, as a parent, like Dr. Houlihan said, we are in a group right now.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, it's not turning off. Here,
Mike is dead.
Here you go.
I was just going to say, as a parent, like Dr. Houlihan said, we are in a groove. And at this point in the game, I would almost say it'd be detrimental Because 2 months ago, I've been like 5 days, no questions asked, but now we're in a groove. We got it down, how everything goes. Also, another point, the weather's getting nicer. Friday's going to be a good day to have outside, whatever. We want to do a remote day outside, learn. I think might be a factor too for some parents, but we're talking about 6 days total. So
Mr. Price?
I guess I would be in favor of the 5-day. I'm a little concerned. We've been in this since August, and I guess what I heard you say is you have not talked to our shareholders at this point about going 5 days.
I can be more clear. I have talked to our stakeholders about 5 days, just not within like the past couple of weeks or month. Every time we have an elementary principals meeting and middle and high school, I'm always asking for feedback on, is this something that if you have new legislation, right? If you, so I guess I can clarify, Mr. Price. I have.
Sounds like we've talked about going to Plan C, but not going back to Plan A.
We've had conversations about the Fridays. The last conversation I had with principals in particular and my professional advisory council of teachers was probably right before winter break or right after about adding a 5th day. That's the last time I've had that conversation. So yes, we have had the conversation on what if we added Fridays? What if at middle and high school we added more days? Are we ready for that? Is that something you support? So we have had those conversations. I just haven't had those conversations recently.
And I guess what are some of the concerns that you're hearing if we did go back 5 days in the conversations you had?
I think I would go back to kind of what I alluded to at the beginning. Number one, we have Fridays that, and Mr. McGraw and Mr. Strickland can comment if needed, we spend those days doing some pretty thorough cleaning throughout our buildings to prepare for the kids to come back the following week. Number two, those days are being viewed as staff as very instrumental in working with kids in small group instruction, intervention support, one-on-one. A lot of social emotional wraparound supports are used during those Fridays as well.
And tracking kids down that maybe they've fallen away.
So I wouldn't say it's one thing. It's a myriad of kind of strategies and lessons that our teachers are working on. And I think, again, one of the biggest ones is preparing that if we had to go to a different plan, we can use those Fridays to advance our planning and our lessons.
Ms. Heintel?
When we changed over to Plan A for the elementary schools back in October, we waited until the end of their marking period because they're on 9 weeks. This would be an off. Their end of grading period is March 19th, so we would be off on it. And I guess I understand why you're asking the questions, but I think everybody, like Mr. Helm said, everybody's in a groove and it makes it a little bit easier to keep it that way. Plus we have EOGs and the end of school and stuff. I'm not sure how many actual days of learning they would get given the end of the year calendar.
Can I, since it's been a while since I've had a child in elementary school, that's the second comment about being inside the grading period, not a clean break at the grading period. Now, on the elementary level, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see that part critical. I see it overweighing the opportunity to get them back in the classroom to prepare for EOGs more critical than an interruption in the grading period. I may be wrong. Like I said, it's been a while. Now, you get into middle and high, I certainly can understand that. But on the elementary level, I would rather have my kid in front of a teacher getting ready for the EOGs, which are going to be the ball game. I mean, am I off air? Is that a serious concern in the midst of the grading period?
I mean, I think it just goes back to the board has made the decisions and administration to have some decision making where it's consistent. So we've set a precedent with the marking period and the grading period, and Ms. Heintel can elaborate if she wants to, but I think what I heard her saying was, because we've set that precedent in the past, do we want to break away from that? From a teaching and learning standpoint, it is what it is. I think it's a situation where if we wanted to move in that direction, whether it's at that marking period or not, but I do believe that the board has been consistent with when we make those changes, It has been where it's a clean break at a marking period that does help teachers in the sense of getting grades ready, report cards being issued, kind of the management of how we evaluate student progress. And it's given a heads up to say, you know, like we've talked about tonight, that if we move in that direction, this is the date that it will happen, which, you know, I appreciate that decision to give our staff well enough of advance time to prepare.
So,
I guess
Mr.
I see a-
Benson, I would like, you
Go
wanted
ahead.
to know what the other board members, so we would know to direct or not direct. So, Mr. Benson, or would you like to, for staff to move forward with, investigating 5 days a week versus the 4 days where we are right now?
Oh, I thought we were just giving generalized comments, but yeah, we just.
Well,
but I'll
we need a
address-
motion and a second from this board if we're going to direct the superintendent to change course. So that's why, and Mr. Sides said that he wanted to hear from the board members if we were
Right.
4 days or
Yeah.
5 days.
I don't want staff to go through the exercise if the board is not prepared to support it philosophically. If Dr. Houlihan comes back and says mechanically, we can make it
No,
work.
no, I'm
yeah.
with you. It's just that, you know, I just wanted to make sure I honored Madam Chair because she was asking a direct question when I thought we were giving generalities, but
I'm sorry. I thought Mr. Sides said he wanted to hear from the other board members
yeah,
where we
just-
stood on 4 or 5 days.
yeah.
Okay.
What I've been thinking about since Gary brought this up is one, nobody has screamed from the mountaintops louder than me that kids should have been back in school way back when. You know, I'm on record. I've said it to anybody that I can talk to. Kids should have been in school. With that said, when the governor gave the okay for elementary to go 5 days, a lot of the surrounding counties did not take advantage of that. But guess who did? We did. And under Dr. Houlihan's leadership and guidance and the staff out there, we took a lot of heat. Got a lot of emails. A lot of what we thought were a lot of parents until Dr. Breedlove showed us the numbers. And it wasn't as many as had been projected. It was just a few just sent a lot of emails. So we took what the governor said and we utilized it. And now we're at a point where you're saying to me, and the previous question that I asked, you know, how is it going? And you're saying that they have hit their stride, that they are making it work right now. And if in fact they are making it work with the 4 days and the 1 day to ensure that the next week, right, is equally successful and safe, then from that standpoint, where I was screaming from the mountaintop, we created a mousetrap that's working. And so I wouldn't want to take the cheese off that mousetrap to try to catch a rat that don't exist no more.
Ms. May.
I mean, basically, we all want to have kids back in school every day. Like, we would totally just do that automatically if we could do whatever we wanted. But I do feel like we also have to think about staff. I mean, our teachers, it's been a ridiculously hard school year for them. And so it's a balancing act between It's a balancing act between do we add the extra day, but if that would make it more difficult for staff. I don't know if, you know, it would be worth it for, what did we decide? It was 6 days, not including EOGs. So that would be my biggest concern.
Mr. Kirkpatrick, if you have any comments.
Yes, ma'am. Listening to the pros and cons, because during this pandemic, there are pros and cons to this whole situation. As mentioned, children do need to be in school because that helps eliminate unsafe environments. And just yesterday in the Southside community, there was a shooting and a young man was killed. And so earlier today, there was also a shooting during school hours. And so it's a lot of things that we have to look at. But as Dr. Houlihan said, that if it's working, as much, I'm with Reverend Bencham, children need to be in school, point blank, period. But if it's working, I think we need to continue to allow it to work. I would ask this question from District 1, has the performance increased? Not increased, but has the performance been satisfactory from District 1 schools, from the students in that area? Because we all know that even though it's one county, there's still two different school systems in one county in a sense. We have a performance on one side of the county and we have a performance on the other due to certain challenges that the eastern part has. So that is my question to you, if I may ask it, Madam Chair, from District 1, how has that performance been doing this year? Has it, have they improved? Is it, has it declined? Because still at the end of the day, we still have to look at that area and not just put all of them in one category.
Yes, sir. Two things. Number one, across all of our schools, we've seen some decline this year. And I think that's purely because of we're having learning loss recovery from missing school last year in the spring, and also students who are continuing to struggle or who may be on a remote, full virtual environment. And number two, we a few weeks ago, we presented some data to the board with regards to learning loss. And I'll be happy to ask our staff, Dr. Breedlove, to email you a copy of that report. We can give you a school by school breakdown if that was something that you'd be interested in, to see how your district compares to others. I would say that all of our schools are working extremely hard to help kids recover. And so I don't have the data in front of me to comment specific to the schools in your district. But what I can tell you is we have seen some decline across the board. But as board members have mentioned, elementary schools have seen a far greater return and less loss of learning than our middle and high schools.
And that data that was presented will show that we have one great school system, and the learning loss occurred countywide. It was not a phenomenon of, let's say, District 1 and not District 6. It was countywide because everybody is suffering the same. If this, and I've really used this phraseology, well, this thing that's going on, this virus, if it's done anything, we talk about leveling the playing field. This is leveled the playing field.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
And it's affected everybody.
I'm sorry. Mr. Kirkpatrick, I will just Cliff's Note version, and I would love the opportunity to sit with you or have a Zoom call or conference call, and then that way I can show you how to access these documents after tonight so that you have everything we have. But the Cliff's Note version, I'm only going to refer to elementary schools since that's what Mr. Sides is discussing tonight. The overall average learning loss or failure rate was 13% for all 30 elementary schools. In District 1, it ranged from I'm seeing 36% failure courses. I'm seeing 32%, 34%, 41%, 23%, 12%, and 39%. So when you ask a fair question, how is this affecting District 1? Those numbers are significantly higher than the average, which is 13%. So I want to answer your question honestly.
I have a question. Next year, we're going 5 days a week, right?
That was exactly where I was going.
This is as long as nothing changes with respect to what we can do, we're going 5 days a week next year. We're going back to a regular
In
school.
elementary.
and hopefully
Ooh,
in middle and
middle school.
Yeah.
high as well.
I mean, guys, we're spending all this time, and it's a great question, Gary. I'm glad we're having a very healthy discussion about letting our elementaries go 4 versus 5. But I'm going to say it again. Our middle school and our high school students are hemorrhaging. Their failure rate, let's never forget, and I'm going to get you this information, 35% failure rate is a number I recall from that report.
It's a tragedy.
And
Right.
so, but that is also the difference between going 2 days a week and 4 days a week.
But we're following the science, so.
Can you
that
add-
doesn't-
Can you?
Madam
yeah.
Chair.
Going back to Ms. Heintel's question, the short answer is yes. It would be my recommendation, proposal, plan that next year we are back 5 days a week, hopefully across the board in all 53 schools.
Can
That's
I
good.
offer, well,
Madam Chair.
sorry, Todd, did you want to say?
You having said that, if something came out of the assembly that said middle and high school could go back 4 days this year, 5 days.
Yeah.
How long would it take you to get middle school and high school ready?
I mean,
We're
again,
going to have the same conversation about that.
well, I mean, we would have to have the same conversation, but again, I think what we have done and what the board has supported from day one is giving our staff enough advance notice. If this was a conversation about middle or high school and the board wanted to move in that direction to more days, I think a timeline like was proposed might be feasible because it gives us adequate time to prepare and plan, or at the end of the 6 weeks grading period, and I can't remember when that is, in March. So I believe if we were having this conversation tonight about middle and high schools, my same trajectory of time on stakeholder consultation with the health department, et cetera, would fall into place.
So
Mr. Price.
it's March 31 because they're on 6 weeks instead of 9 weeks, which is the elementary. The good thing too is that after this mass vaccination event this past weekend, everybody that got the vaccine will get the second shot in a couple
Within that
weeks,
time.
right? And then after that, 2 weeks, then, and the CDC has said that if you're fully vaccinated and it's 2 weeks past it, that if you are exposed to a person with COVID, you do not have to quarantine. So that would help hugely with teachers being able to be in the classroom.
Not shutting our classrooms down.
Right.
And I know in Spit, we asked the question concerning the buses. How quick would the buses be able to get running? And transportation said all they needed was a word.
Okay.
So,
Well,
Mr. Price, I would like to offer my perspective from September. As soon as the governor had a press conference in September that opened the door for elementary schools to go 5 days a week, beginning October 5th, we called an emergency meeting after Dr. Houlihan and staff had an opportunity to meet with all the principals and get some feedback from teachers. And so he gathered that information. We called a special meeting, and based on the feedback he got and our calendar and the grading periods for our elementary schools that are on 9 weeks, we did not move Union County Public Schools elementary schools to 4 days on October 5th, but rather the end of October, based on our grading periods and everything. So if you think about that, we took a full month from the governor's announcement as a planning opportunity, and we didn't rush it back October 5th, but gave him the time to plan and all the principals to have a chance to alter their master schedules in all 30 schools. And so we moved to 4 days a week the end of October. It was the 20-something. So in my mind, if the governor were to make an announcement tomorrow that we could move middle schools and high schools to Plan A, I see him gathering information, talking to all the principals, And we would probably call an emergency meeting or a special meeting exactly the way we did in September. And take some time to figure out how we would make that change on our calendar.
How about if I do this so we could kind of move things along? I'll make a motion, see if there's any support, and if not, we'll move on. I'll offer a motion to direct staff to gather the necessary information to come back to this board, come back to the curriculum committee meeting with a recommendation on how to move or if to move forward on a 5-day school week for elementary students. I'll offer that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Okay, 3. All those opposed?
May I offer a substitute motion? I'd like to make a motion that beginning with fall of 2021 calendar, we go back to a 5-day, all things staying the same, still following the guidelines of the governor if he still allows Plan A, that in fall of 2021 for the next school year, we go to a 5-day elementary schedule.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, 9-0. Okay, thank you very much.
Good job, Gary.
That brings us to policies for review.
Good evening, members of the board. We have before you 4 policies and 4 administrative guidelines for your review. If anyone has any questions about them, I am glad to answer those at this time. Otherwise, the policies will be back before the board at the next board meeting for approval.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And that brings us to board comments.
I'll start, Madam Chair. As a former District 1 representative, I want to, during board comments, just congratulate our new board member, Pastor Fitzpatrick, for coming on the board, and look forward to working with you. So whatever you need, don't hesitate. I'll give you my number as soon as this is over with, and we're excited to have you. That's it. I think I said enough last board meeting.
I would just like to also welcome Mr. Fitzpatrick to the board. It's glad to have you and look forward to working with you.
Same here. I think we all are excited to have you here.
So when we got the letter of your notice, it said Pastor John Kirkpatrick IV. And I thought, well, how wonderful will that be to have a pastor and a reverend serving the Board of Education for Union County students. I look forward to getting to work with you. And just as Reverend Benchen said, we will exchange cell phone numbers, and there will be some onboarding training that staff will prepare so that you can get familiar with all the different departments. And I stand ready to help you with any questions you have on the board and committees that we will appoint you to serve on with our staff. So we really look forward to getting to know you and working with you. I do want to remind all of our board members that we have a joint meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's March 18th at 6 o'clock with the Board of County Commissioners. The original location was Ag Center. Please cross that out on your calendars. They had something come up, an event there, and we will be holding our joint meeting right here at 6 o'clock with Commissioner Rape and the other 4 commissioners and Union County government. So please change your calendars so that you will be here on March 18th at 6 p.m. And please eat before you come. Those are the only 2 comments I have.
Before?
Eat before you come so your tummy's good and full. Are there any other comments?
Madam Chair, Dr. Houlihan alluded to earlier the football we had Friday night, last Friday. I would like to thank David Ellis, our House Representative, and Todd Johnson, our Senator, for the hard work they put involved in that,
Absolutely.
making that happen.
Agree with that. Thank you to them, David Willis and Todd Johnson.
And we got broke in with cold, rainy.
I
weather.
enjoyed all of the tweets that looked like a monsoon.
It was a monsoon.
But how happy everyone was to be experiencing football. But yes, Senator Todd Johnson has been working very, very hard on our behalf, and Representative Dean Arp, Mark Brody, and David Willis. This was something they were very passionate about in serving our parents of Union County, and it ended up benefiting the entire state.
Just to add that, I heard from Representative Willis today and their local legislation that would expand capacity even further past the 30% is back to the House for a floor vote today.
I think so.
So we might have even higher capacity for this Friday night's games.
Mhm.
More the merrier.
If there are no other board comments, we will move to announcements.
Madam Chair, the SPIT committee is scheduled to meet March 24th at 7:30 here at the PDC, if needed.
Thank you.
The Finance Committee will meet on March 23rd at 9 a.m. and we have to determine whether we're doing it on Zoom or in person. So I'll let everybody know that. Facilities Committee meeting March 18th, 9 a.m. PDC.
And the Curriculum Committee will follow facilities here at the PDC on the 18th at 11 a.m.
Madam Chair, Policy will meet March 24th at 9 o'clock, and that will be Zoom.
9 o'clock Zoom. Okay. If there are no other announcements, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.